Hello, and welcome to the first lesson in organization. We're going to take a look at a few ways you can organize your sheets using rows and columns. So we're going to first take a look at freezing rows or columns. What freezing does is it allows you to have a row or a column or multiple columns or rows to always be seen. So one way you can do this is you can highlight which rows or columns you want, press View, and then go to freeze. Now here it already has 1, 2, or up to 1 row. Up to 1 is where my cursor's at. We'll choose 1. And now if I scroll down in this data, this is always seen. So that's especially useful if you have like multiple numbers or things and you're not 100% sure what it's for. Similarly, you can do it with columns. Now, I showed you up here in the view, but you can also go over here until you see the hand, and you can pull that to whichever columns you want to remain there. Now, if you scroll up and down when you have multiple, those ones, of course, will be hidden as you scroll in that direction. But if you scroll in the direction that it's in, then it'll be seen. So, you can't have these always shown because there's just no way with the two. So that's the ways that you can essentially freeze them to always show. Next, we're going to look at grouping. Now, grouping is a way that you can essentially hide certain rows or columns from view, but you can easily get back to them. So maybe in this case, for this example, you just want the names, and then you want like what the asset type is, condition, and then when it was checked out. So you could highlight the rows that columns you don't want. Let's go to F, go up to View, Group, and then group columns. You can also do Option plus Shift plus right or left to ungroup. Once you do that, you'll see a line and then a negative or a minus sign. When you click that box, it'll then collapse it. If you press the plus, it'll expand it. So now we have this data that is hidden for, us to have a little easier time viewing what's on there, but you can easily open it up again. Similarly, you can do that with rows. So you can right click and then do more row options. Then you can group, and then you can hide them and expand them. Simply right click and remove the group, or you can do the collapse and expand. You can also move the button. So moving the button would be as if you, instead of wanting it on B, you want it on the other side. So it would be on G. So the same ones are getting hidden. It's just a matter of where the button is. Now, one tip, if you do have this on multiple columns or multiple rows, and you switch one of them, it'll switch the other one too. So just keep that in consideration. You can have to have them facing the same way. So that's grouping. The next is hiding, and it's very similar to it, other than it's a little bit harder to have it be shown again. So if you want to hide some, you select those in the highlight, right click, and then go to the hide rows. Now you can do the same thing with the columns as well, and you can see it goes 14 and then just skips all of those numbers that we were missing and goes down to 22. Those arrows show that something is hidden there, so you can either highlight those and then say unhide, or you can push the arrow once and then they're seen again. So hiding does the same thing as grouping does, other than the hiding is a little bit harder to, do it over and over again. So depending on what you're wanting, hiding is generally better to use it when you want them to just never be shown but still there. Now, one tip with these two, if you have a graph connected to some data or a table, you can actually use that. And I'm going to use the hotkeys there, Shift, Option, and then right. If you have data on there and you expand and collapse, you can see that you can actually have it hide that data. So maybe you just want to look at iPads and computers, you can collapse this and then you can show it. Similarly, if you do hide column, the same thing will happen. I'm just going to press Command Z to undo that and then remove the group. Now, the first time you do that, you'll actually get a little message and then it'll say that you can choose for the data to be hidden or not. So if I do that and I actually want it to always be shown, you can go to Edit Chart and then include hidden or filtered data. And even though it's hidden, it's not going to make a difference. So it's again up to you how you want to use it, but that might be a helpful way for you to just easily filter your data in a graph. Next is deleting and clearing. So deleting and clearing work similarly, but they are quite different. Now, in deleting, if you take something and you delete it, so let's say we're doing 26, you can right click and push delete row. When I do that, you can see now that this next name just moves up. So all of the rows move up and are renamed. So I'm going to put Command Z, and we can see that row 26 is back. If I clear it by right-clicking and then doing clear row, the data is gone, but it stays on that row. So there's just nothing in that row. I'm just going to do Command Z and undo. So in some ways they're similar, other ways it's different. One thing to note too with this is, let's say that we are referencing cells. Like I'm just going to reference this table here, and I'm going to drag it over. And let's say that in this reference here, I decide to delete M. So delete the column. You can see here a reference error becomes here because this is going L, and then there's a reference, and then it just automatically switches to M, which is the next one. This one used to be M, but because it was deleted, there's nothing for it to reference, so you'd get the error. If you have an error like this, what you'd have to do is you'd have to re-go through, and then you'd see that these highlighted rows are now updated. So keep that in mind if you are just referencing cells, that some things might not work as you expect. So I'm just pushing Control Z to undo it. If I clear this, you can see it's cleared here, but the reference row is still there, or reference cells. So undo. Now, the last one is inserting, and that's like deleting, but let's say that we have these references still, and I insert a column left. So it now goes L, M, N, O, P. Now over here, even though these are static, these are just relative references, it goes L, M, then O. So it doesn't actually continue on with this next new data. It stays to where it is. So it's important to know that if you have these cell references and you're inserting and deleting, that it's going to cause issues if you continually do that and you're referencing that same specific cell. So keep that in mind as you're building your tables and organizing it. Generally, putting stuff in between things isn't best unless you have some sort of spill or an array. In this example, we don't, just to show what can happen if you have cells referenced and you insert in between them or you delete ones in between. Well, that's all that we're going to look at for this. I hope you find some useful skills to be able to organize your rows and columns better. In the next one, we'll take a look at how you can organize your sheets with a few different options. Until then, bye now.